Well, hey there, Scholarly Gamers, and welcome to this week's episode of Jungle Drums. I'm joined by my good friend, Sergeant J.
Hola.
How are we doing this evening, good sir?
Yeah, I'm good, cheers, I'm good. How are you?
Can't complain too much, and even if I did complain, nobody would really care. But yeah, no, I'm okay. Not too bad. I have not been gaming as much as you most likely have.
No, probably not.
But in fact, speaking of which, I actually need to get my head down and get into the books and watching videos for Python. I still never quite got round to making sure I was fully.
Yeah, you still got some time. It's fine.
It's fine. Look, hey, I've got all of next week. I can, if I really, really put my mind to it, I can brush up. I know the basics.
Exactly.
It's fine. It'll all be fine. I swear. Anywho. Right, so what have we got this week? I got a few things here and there, a bit of a mix of tech and gaming news as per usual. So the first bit of news I'd found from a website called GameByte.com, and this was near the beginning of the week and had to do with loads more information being dropped about the Xbox 2. There's going to be more than one console. Now, we had kind of known about this, when we were talking about Xbox Scarlett a couple of months back. We knew that, there would be something coming. Because, Phil Spencer had confirmed at the end of E3 that, that Microsoft was working on the next generation of consoles. To put it in his exact words, actually, he said, deep into architecting the next Xbox consoles. So, we already knew that, yes, there was going to be more than one console. And the one thing that's quite interesting is that, obviously there was one that was going to be called Scarlett, which, was going to be this kind of on-demand thing to do with game streaming. But there's also supposed to be a traditional console coming up as well. So, it's interesting. Jay and I were discussing this briefly before, that it kind of sucks in many ways, especially for those of us that bought, a 1X, a Scorpio. Because, where does it leave us? Is the 1X going to be, left behind in the dust? Is it still going to actually perform better than the new generation of consoles? We don't know. Do you think, Jay, that this is, was it Microsoft's plan all along? Or is their hand really being forced because, it looks like the PlayStation 5 is going to be coming out next year?
It potentially could be both, couldn't it, really? Because, the way to look at it is you say, because the PlayStation 5 is coming out, is it going to be more powerful? Is it going to be better? Is it going to force people to want to go over there instead? Both consoles are looking at putting the backwards compatibility in either, so it's not like either one of them are shooting themselves in the foot by going, like PlayStation last time.
I think that's a good point. That's one of the big key differences that, for at this point, obviously, we won't know 100% till it comes out, but it does look like the PS5, is going to have that backwards compatibility for the PS4 and PS4 Pro, which, as you say, that's something that Sony, if we're honest, has never really been great for. Compared to Microsoft. That's interesting. It's just,
I just think it's going to be going down the route now of, like, you say it's another console being the 2X, but it's essentially going to be a hardware upgrade. Some software, especially if they're going to be putting more AI in for the Xbox side with Cortana, as it potentially says in the article. But I just think it's now going to start going down this iterative business model in terms of not looking at it from just a big new console point of view, and until things like, obviously, as you were discussing earlier about like this 8K TV, until those sort of things kick off more so, and ray tracing and stuff like that, it's unlikely there'll be another big, humongous console in terms of that respect. So I think it'll just be iterative. But it'll be interesting to see what they put out of it. If it will be seen as just an iterative design on the Xbox One, just for a fancy new name on it, or if it, and the same with the PS5. Or whether or not it will be some sort of substantial upgrade and reasoning for it being a completely new console.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think a lot of it most likely has to do with that, with the kind of the steps forward in technology. When you look at how when the PS4 Pro came out, the first console to be displaying 4K content, stuff looked amazing. Then kind of like, the tech heads were really getting into saying, well, wait a minute though, it's not rendering it some games at 4K, it's doing checkerboarding. Yeah. So then the One X comes out, and yes, it can do some games at true 4K. Some it can actually do them at 60 FPS, which is great. But there's a lot of cases where it doesn't actually. If we're brutally honest, I'm not taking away from the hardware that the One X is. It's really, a great piece of kit. But it's still based off hardware that, if we're honest, wasn't the latest and greatest at the time of its release. This is the way consoles work. They get the hardware for it, but it takes quite a while for it to come out. And that's why when you look at with the PlayStation 5, one of the things that had been leaked about it was that it was going to be using a Zen-based CPU from AMD and a custom GPU based on the AMD Navi architecture, which that's the architecture that hasn't even been released yet. So I think it is just this case of, they're in consoles, unfortunately, they very much play catch-up, at least nowadays, in regards to graphical power. It wasn't as noticeable generations, past, but now, because the PS4 Pro and the One X have actually got, they're now giving home, console players a graphical experience that, for honest, is very comparable to that of a PC user. You know what I mean? And so now, when you look at the things that are happening this year with the upgrade to the NVIDIA technology, the upgrade to the AMD technology, I can get why, for consoles to stay relevant, they would want to have upgraded hardware in the next, not necessarily the next 12 months, but within the next 2 years. I can get that, because we're at that point where the computer graphics and hardware probably is going to move quite quickly with these new things like ray tracing.
Definitely.
But, it does. What makes me interested is, like you said, where do we stand with our One X's? Are they still going to be relevant? Are we still going to have a decent gaming experience for the next couple of years?
I'd like to think so, considering what it is.
Yeah. And how much we paid.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's still my Scorpio edition, so I'm never going to regret it or anything.
If
I'm
anything,
sure based around the code name being Scarlett, they'll probably bring out a Scarlett Edition now for the 2. But
no, it's one of those things. Even like it's funny. Just today, me and my other half, we were in Curry's PC World, and I was showing her like the prices of like 4K Blu-ray players. And they're actually still quite expensive for just a 4K Blu-ray player. And just to kind of explain it to her that, hey, well, look, see that right there? That's built in. Like, my Xbox One X has that within it. When you start looking at factors like that, it just kind of, starts justifying the price a little bit, I would say. So, I would say, what about, very, very briefly, though, did you see what it said about how, once again, Spencer has said that there's no plans for VR?
I did not read that.
He still believes that... Where was it? I'll find it. Here's the quote. It's just after... Or it's... Whereabouts? It's not exactly halfway down. It's about a third of the way down. It says, virtual reality has been ruled out, with Spencer adding that desktop PCs are probably still the best platform for using the technology. Which I understand, but it still surprises me when you think of how in the early days of the Xbox One X, they were really pushing VR, saying, oh, it's going to be capable. And then slowly over time, they just kind of said, no, forget that. Forget we ever said that. We're not going to be doing VR. And now, once again, this time be totally ruling out. I just think it's a bit of a shame, because I know the PlayStation VR isn't perfect, but it's still one of the most adopted VR headsets out there, compared to the Oculus, the Vive, and whatnot.
Do you think part of the reason might be for it is obviously, being obviously Microsoft, they've got the PC part anyway, but just to top it all off, like if they then got to sit there and compete with Sony on VR, does that take away from their other potential innovation within it?
It's a fair point. I mean, like you say, I mean, it would, when you factor in R&D and all those other types of costs, you know, you are right. If it's a market that, it's hard to say whether or not VR has been successful or a flop. I mean, the thing that I think a lot of people forget is that this isn't, like, VR is not a new thing. I mean, God, I mean, I remember playing VR games in a shopping mall in the US when I was like, what, 11 or 12? And, you know, I'm relatively old, so that's quite a while back, right? I mean, VR has been around for decades, but it's never ever kind of picked up. And it's the same like with 3D. When you think of 3D, that's also technically a really old technology that came around for a bit, was a fad, and went away. And then a few years back, when they relaunched it on TV, I mean, we have a 3D TV upstairs. You know, my stepdaughter uses it now. And I was amazed by it. It was great. And, you know, I'd always buy 3D Blu-rays. Fantastic technology. Really enjoyable. But that's pretty much died out now. Try find a TV, a brand new TV that has 3D. They just...
Sometimes there's like gimmicks like that. And I use the word gimmicks because it's, in a way, is that just does not go through. I mean, the idea of 3D TVs was a great idea, but I don't know why it didn't take off, and I just think it wasn't necessarily a thing that was people were interested in, really. I mean, I would have much rather had a pretty crisp TV than be watching it in 3D. I mean, yeah, the idea of it's cool. That's where the thing comes down, isn't it? It's a cool idea. Is it really necessarily sustainable as an idea?
It was one of those things. It was so game changing for me. A 3D TV, like, for instance, something like, let's use the film Gravity as an example. Remember that one, Sandra Bullock in space? Yeah. In 3D, holy shit. I mean, that was just, you know, some of the stuff that was flying towards you. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Like, honestly, with a 3D TV, you know, combined with the surround sound, you know, and everything, it just created that experience where you could find yourself flinching. Which, okay, I suppose, to play devil's advocate, maybe some people don't want that when they're watching a film. Maybe they don't want to have that kind of flinch reaction. But it was a complete game changer for us when I'd, you know, and folk used to come over to the house and I'd, like, you know, say, oh, like, hey, you know, try it out. Even some of the older video games, was it Gears of War 3? Was it 3 or 2? One of them was 3D compatible. And I think one of the Assassin's Creeds was as well. And that was another thing. In games, it was amazing. But it just wasn't adopted. And VR, I think, is very similar, where, like, I've got a buddy, you know, who's got a Vive. And so he plays PC games in VR. And it's amazing. I mean, it really, truly is amazing. But one of the biggest problems is the cost of entry. You need to have a really good PC, and then, of course, all that additional hardware, the headset, the sensors, which I suppose is very similar to the TVs. The 3D TVs were priced much higher than the traditional TVs at the time. And some people just don't want that, you know, cost of entry. But VR is one of those things that once you've done it, you're like, oh, wow, this is fab. I want all my games to be VR now. It can just...
yeah, exactly.
Yes. Speaking of new stuff, this week was a very big week for Destiny 2 fans because Forsaken had dropped just the other day there. It is now launched. There was a few initial issues. In fact, I just saw a tweet that folk are still experiencing issues purchasing it on console. Not everywhere, but, you know, quite a few folk. But I just very quickly picked up an article here at Forbes with the headline saying that, yes, Destiny 2's Forsaken expansion is another triumphant Taken King. Now, disclaimer, I haven't picked it up yet, which is a first for me when it comes to the Destiny universe. I always pre-order this stuff. But just due to circumstances, I have not this time around. But of course, our resident, Destiny, fanboy isn't a fair word. Just an enthusiast. You love Destiny, we all do. Has of course been playing the absolute shit out of it. So, just come on, Jay, set us up here. Why should we buy Forsaken?
Oh God, where do I actually want to start? First of all, let's start with the story, just because let's start with the main part of the campaign. Obviously, it's going to be one of the main things people go into. The story itself is great. It's about sort of taking Kingside, I'd probably say, for the first part anyway. It's got really good storytelling to it. There's none of that sort of almost cringe dialogue we were used to in Destiny 2 vanilla. It's been very ramped up in terms of been made very adult and very dark as well as such, which is great about it. There's a few good things. Like, this is why really spoiling it, but for example, the Baron fights are adventures. They're not actually part of the main campaign, so they're replayable, I believe, if you unlock the heroic adventures, which I assume will be the case. Which is pretty cool. The Baron fights themselves are unique, very interesting. Some of the most interesting boss fights actually I've done to date. Some of them were fantastic. Again, Bungie did deliver on the fact that you can, because they're adventures, you can do many order you want to. So some of the bosses are obviously a bit harder, higher light and everything, depending upon what you want to go for first. So I'm pretty sure I started off with one of the hardest bosses to begin with, because I was like, this guy looks pretty interesting, so I'll do that. So from that point of view, it's great.
You. I can see you doing that.
It's a good challenge. But yeah, the ending part of the campaign is fantastic as well. And again, I won't go into that because I don't want to spoil anything. And then obviously you finish off the story, and then you've essentially got the Dreaming City area as well, which I haven't unlocked yet. And again, from what I've read, there's a lot of stuff in there to do, a lot of secrets to unlock, a lot of things to do, which is great.
Yeah, allegedly it's quite a high power level requirement for there as well, isn't there?
So I haven't actually been in there yet. So I think the 500 should be fine from the soft camp point of view. Then next let's go subclasses. I'll quickly go on to that as well. The new subclasses are absolutely amazing to play. They completely change the play styles of the way it is, and although we haven't got any new subclasses in terms of like a different element or something, the actual new classes do make them feel completely different.
And those they're locked, right? Like behind some kind of mini quest or something?
So you have to get like some special seed to be able to essentially collect them to get them unlocked. You get one from the actual main campaign, obviously, and then I think the other ones are tied into the Dreaming Sea, but again, I haven't really had a chance to explore it yet or be able to pick them up. Then I suppose going forward to activity point of view, there is so much to do. It's ridiculous. So obviously you've got so many bounties to do now. And as far, I don't think there's enough slots potentially in your inventory to actually carry all the bounties from a day. From a day point of view, there's loads of weekly bounties to do. They've completely revamped the milestone system, as they said, so now you've got weekly challenges. So for example, the Crucible and Vanguard ones this week, I expect they'll probably stay the same, maybe change, I do not know, are to complete 3 matches in Crucible, I think, and 3 strikes in Vanguard or something like that, or so many, whilst wearing a full set of Crucible and Vanguard Year 2 armor. Obviously, respective upon which thing you're in, which is, can be a nightmare. I'm still missing the Crucible mark, and I spent about 400 Crucible tokens because I had like 800 saved up before they came out, and I still haven't got the mark yet. But it's good though, so it gives you obviously that farming opportunity again for me. I've got to go farm some Crucible, well, not Crucible, the most, I've still got all the marks, but tokens, but obviously I need 5 Vanguard strikes for the thing. There's hidden weapon quests, again, that appear through stuff. Again, I won't spoil how they come about and where you get them from, unless you want to look them up, but they've got those back in again, so almost like Fawn-esque sort of things, and obviously the old school bounties you used to get.
Nice.
I haven't seen the Gambit one yet. I don't know how you get that, but again, obviously you've got a Gambit game mode, which is that's literally what I've been doing. I've got so many things I need to do, like bounties, farming planetary materials, farming powerful gear, and I just can't stop playing Gambit. So again, that's got the same sort of system as Valor. You got an infamy rank, you go up as you go further up, obviously, and then you can reset it and all this. So yeah, obviously you've got, like I said, all these bounties to do. You've got the triumphs and collections now. So obviously the collections being all the weapons you've collected. From there you can pull your emblems, your ships, your sparrows. You can pull for a small cost shaders, which is really nice as well.
See, I didn't notice that because I'd looked through all that stuff when I fired up the game. Because even so, I don't have Forsaken. Obviously, I've got the patch, so all of those changes at least I have. And I did notice the Triumphs tab, and I thought, oh wow, that's really, really cool. But I didn't realize that you could also access shaders for a few.
Yeah, in the collections, you got all the shaders. It's under the flare tab, so you can get all like your emblems and stuff, and then your shaders. So like, which was great because obviously from the limited disc and the collector's disc, whatever it was, you get some cage shaders, and I was like, oh, you only get 5. I'm gonna have to use these wisely, and then realised, oh, I can just rebuy them from the collections, which is really nice. And again, it's quite interesting ones because on the collections tab, you've got like a recently discovered of all the weapons that you recently discovered. Obviously, you can't reacquire a lot of them because if they're randomized gear, you can't reacquire them, which is fair enough because again, obviously. If you're going to be able to just keep fattening out buying weapons, you're going to obviously be able to get rolls you want to get. Just going to keep you out more in the open and looking for what you want to think. There's so many more gear sets out now. The Tangled Shore area, Patrol Zone area is amazing. It feels so open because there's like, as people have said, there's no walls. You're just on like all this sort of like asteroid debris, whatever it is, and all this stuff put together. It's absolutely amazing. The fact it does feel so open. And again, the lost sectors there are great. And I had another repeat of the old school Destiny 1 where I walked into a lost sector when I first started up the game and proceeded to walk into a bunch of mobs that were skulls and one-shot me. And I was like, well, I can go back here for a while. The NPCs are great. They've all got really good dialogue. The fact you've got the in-game lore now as well, which I still need to look through. It's just hits perfect from that point of view. It's made a lot of people happy. God, honestly, I can't remember what I've said now. There's so much to talk about.
No, I mean you're definitely you're making a very good case for it. So I mean, for the the price, which I mean to be fair, it's about half, maybe a little bit over half what the full game, like the original game would have cost, right? I mean,
yeah.
But it definitely sounds like we are getting quite a chunk. I mean, Taken King. When we look back on that was well worth every penny.
Yeah.
So I think
it's better than Taken King in terms of even for bang for your buck.
See, so I mean, that's quite a good, considering that the raid isn't even out yet, and that's a whole another, layer. Because haven't they claimed that this is going to be the biggest raid?
Yes, I believe.
Environment
they've said
ever.
It's going to be the biggest. It changes over time as well. So I think it's on a cycle pattern for like 3 weeks or something. So I don't know how that works from the raid point of view, but like I said, I don't know how it works being in there, but it changes. You've got the blind well activity in the Dreaming City, which I think is almost taken, or a thing like Archon's Forge and Court of Oryx, but I haven't had a chance to look at this yet, which is great. So again, more replayability there. Obviously I keep an eye on Reddit anyway, but there's been so many secrets and little things discovered in the Dreaming City. Like, it's huge. People are saying like there's exploring phrases and still finding new things. There's a few little niggly parts of the game which people are complaining about, such as, for example, the clan XP system, because obviously you get clan bounties now. And obviously they're complaining about the fact for smaller clans it's not great. I mean, for me it's quite difficult to do stuff, my clan bounties, because of the pure fact that the weekly ones require me to do activities with clan members.
Keep rubbing it in. Guilt trip.
I know, right?
No, honestly, I think you're making a really, really strong case, and this is one of the prime reasons that, I did want to wait. I know I've always blindly, when it came to Destiny, and there's very, very few games that I pre-order nowadays. It doesn't happen that often. But it always happens with Destiny 2, and I had, if we're honest, I had been somewhat disenchanted with it, because there was a lot of things I was getting hung up on, that, wait a minute, they've really, really regressed, and now most of their updates is just really about trying to make it more like the original, but not exactly. So there was a lot of ways that I was really kind of pissed off with the whole thing. Hence why I didn't pre-purchase this. But I haven't read that much. I've purposely been trying to stay away from spoilers. But hearing from someone that obviously, I've known for years, I respect your opinion. I think you've converted me.
I mean, I've not been shy to slate Destiny. In all fairness,
this is true.
Was a cluster, and I can't even. Curse of Osiris just is somewhere within the crap that was part of Destiny. But like I said, there's still a few niggly things. Obviously, you've got the way the new infusion system works, which not a lot of people enjoy.
A lot of people are. A lot of people are really hung up on that. But yet, like a lot of folk that argue for it say, well, no, but it's quite nice because it gives you, another a reason to grind, certain activities and whatnot.
I'm very much for it, and there's a few reasons for that. One, I do not think people should have to be looking at it from the point of view that I should be entitled to have 10 bits of gear all constantly getting towards max light within a few days. No, I'm sorry. You've got to earn that gear. Like, the fact of the matter is, I do not agree that you should be able to get a god roll piece of gear and then just keep infusing and stuff like this. You've got to work for it. You've got to put the effort in. And the thing is, Master Work Cores, a nightmare to get hold of. I won't deny that fact. But you can buy them from one of the vendors for 10 legendary shards, and it exponentially increases. So the next time you buy it's 20, then 40, then 80. But it resets daily. So obviously you can get one Master Work Core a day, which is fine. I mean, I dismantled an item yesterday, and I got a consumable, which was essentially when you use this, the next boss you kill will guarantee a Master Work Core drop. Oh, see.
And even another thing I saw, what isn't duplicate items don't require a Masterwork Core.
No.
So if you were farming, let's say, strikes or or let's say Crucible rewards or whatever, then there's ways that make it hurt less, I suppose, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, yes, it's a nightmare, but I think you've got to do that. And the planetary materials, I really do not understand people's hoo-ha over, and I haven't had a chance to farm them yet in terms of ground farm them, but before, when the new update came out, so the week before Forsaken was released, I was probably sitting on about, because I literally spent a load of them trying to get the Hunter Bray Tech gear from Anna Bray. So I was probably on about maybe 10, 20, Seraphites. After a week of playing, not even farming them purposely, I was on 340. And I'm sorry, but I cannot see how farming planetary materials can be difficult. Everything gives you them now. In the Gate tokens gives planetary materials.
It just doesn't.
Public events gives like 15, I think. Flat points will increase them even more.
It just, like you say, going to chests. I mean, we did this in the original Destiny. You would learn on a planet the route that you would take, where you would, be hitting up the actual plants or whatever to farm those and the chests. It's, I know people get pissed off about that kind of thing, but it's, in all reality, clever design because it forces, and maybe that's what gamers don't like, is being forced to do something, but to revisit those planets, the older content. It gives you a reason to go back to, Earth, the EDZ, a reason to go back to Io. And then, oh, look, whilst you're there just so happens to be a public event. And, very much you're there, and there could be maybe some people that have just started playing Destiny that don't know what they're doing, and there you go, you jump in, you activate the heroic version of that public event. I mean, it's just, Destiny 2 is very much still, at its heart, is a social game, and, like you say, a lot of these people that just are entitled, feel entitlement of, oh no, this, that, and this, they just, they're unsociable.
You can't expect to be fully geared with like 4 different choices of items all max height within a couple of days. It's just not right. And the other thing as well is you're coming back to, obviously, we used to do this all the time anyway on D1. The difference between D1 and D2 now is D1, you got your spin metal, for example, materials from the nodes within the zones, like obviously spin metal trees, and chests. That was it. Mm-hmm. You literally get planetary materials from lost sectors, chests around the place, public events, fast point work, high value targets. I think you might get them from patrols as well, but I can't remember. You get all of it from that.
So there's
it's
so
much easier
many
to farm.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's so many different ways to get said material. You know, so it'd be different. I could understand if, say, it meant you had to go to this planet and there was only one way to get them. Yeah, that would be frustrating. That would be repetitive. That would be boring. But as you say, with, you know, so many different ways to get said material, it just... folk just find shit to complain about for the sake of complaining, it seems. You know, it just... it's, you know, I mean, think back to the days of WoW, when we used to play WoW, right? Like, some of the things you would have to do to farm materials to make flasks and whatnot, it just...
Yeah, exactly. I spent like 2 hours just raid farming flasks before a raid.
I just... You know, I know it's a horrible derogatory term, but it's once again a case of just casual gamers don't actually realize how good they've got things.
Exactly.
It's not that bad. But no, so there you go, folks. Destiny 2's Forsaken expansion is out. You know, by all accounts, especially what Jay's saying here, it does sound like if you enjoy Destiny 2, it is probably worth the purchase. You know, the other thing is, we might save it for another episode, but we do need to talk sometime, and we will. We'll save it. But we need to talk about the annual pass and how all that stuff works as well.
Oh yes,
because that's a step. It's something different from what they've done before, isn't it? So
it actually looks really good. That's what I'll say on it. Is I generally think it will change the way Destiny plays and feels.
Okay, we'll file that away and we'll get back to that. Just so I can try to quickly go through a couple of other things. I've got a tiny bit of hardware news. I'll just make this really, really quick. Obviously, we talked the other week about the new 20 series NVIDIA cards that are coming out. Reviews of those will be going live on let me look at the calendar, the 17th of September, I believe. That's when the embargo lifts. So we should hopefully start to see some performance results of those. But in the meantime, over at videocardswithaz.com, the EVGA models were posted, which look really, really quite interesting, because EVGA is going to be launching some pre-made, well, basically video cards that are going to come already equipped with a water cooling block for custom loops. Of course, they're hybrid, they're built-in, water cooled cards. Well, like, it's a hybrid card. It has water cooling and has, your typical fan cooling. So they're going to have a couple of models of those, and that's really nice to see for people that want that, because, if we're honest, thanks, Robert. If we're honest, when it comes to these, when it comes to doing like a custom water loop, it is difficult and it is expensive. Whereas these pre-built cards that have like a hybrid system, usually they've got like a little 120 or sometimes maybe smaller 92mm radiator with a fan built into it. And these do tend to perform better than the air-cooled, just because, heat is the enemy when it comes to video cards. This is why, if you ever look at your video card software, you might see the actual clock speeds will kind of, they'll fluctuate, because as heat builds up, the cards tend to, roll back the speed, so it doesn't overheat. Whereas with, a water-cooled video card, obviously, basically that never really happens. They'll go as high as they physically can. So it's quite nice to see EVGA is going to be coming out with those. But they're also going to obviously be having these ones that, instead of having to buy a water block from another company like EK Water Blocks or Alpha Cool, you could just buy an EVGA Hydro Copper XC, and there you go. It's already got the block fitted to it. And then the other thing that's quite a bit naff is they're also launching a blower style version of the 28 Ti, which, when you look at the new TIs and how they look, they are very, very attractive. And so you might ask yourself, why in the hell would they come out with a blower version? Well, look, let's be honest, for some people's use case scenarios, a blower style graphics card is actually better for them. And also, if anything, it should reel the price that little bit in. Remember, the 2080 Ti's, you're looking at, about $1,200 for those cards. So with any luck, the blower model might be quite a bit cheaper. But no, I just thought it was really interesting with the EVGA models that were that were revealed. They looked quite neat. Right, tiny bit of gaming news was to do with Dead Cells. Now, Dead Cells, you may remember, was the game that was... the game itself wasn't surrounded in controversy, but a review of it most certainly was. But anyway, from over at Destructoid, there was a great piece of news here about how the Switch version of Dead Cells is outselling the PS4 version by a factor of 4 to 1. Now, Dead Cells is, it does look like a fantastic game. Now, I'll admit, it's not a game that I own. It's not necessarily even a genre that I would go out of my way to play. What about yourself, Jay? I'm assuming possibly same kind of boat.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, at the moment, I really pay too much attention.
You don't have time.
I honestly do not. There's so many games I'd love to play, but no, I don't think it's something that I will probably end up picking up any point soon.
And I get that. It's one of those. It's like, if say I had been provided a code for review, oh yeah, of course, I'd eat it right up and I'd play it and whatnot. Likewise, if there was like a free trial, I most likely would have given it a go. But it does. It's been reviewed really, really well. It's got a lot going for it. But why I found this news piece interesting is when you think about it, it's saying that the Switch version of this game has outsold the PS4 version by a factor of 4 to 1. When you consider how many people own a PlayStation 4 compared to how many people own a Switch. Because, Jay and myself, we play games on our PCs and the Xbox, right? I mean, you do own a PS4. This is true. Yeah. You've got the best of both worlds. But PS4s have been around for ages, right? They've been around for a good while. There's, over 76 million of them have been sold, whereas there's only been about 20 million Switches sold. So for a game like this to be outselling on the Switch, when you think of how the PlayStation 4 almost outnumbers the Switch by a factor of 4 to 1, it's really interesting to see a game, be the opposite, where it's actually selling better on the Switch. So I just found it I thought it was a really, really interesting. And in fact, it's actually the first game that's available on multiple platforms to perform, when I say perform, I mean sell, not actual performance, to sell better on the Switch than on one of the other platforms. So quite interesting, especially when think about, Jay, remember when the Switch was first announced and a lot of people thought it was gimmicky and it probably won't do that well.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever met anyone that has regretted buying a Switch.
No, I don't think anybody has.
You know what I mean? I mean, Nate, because Nate got one, right?
Yeah, Nate's got one. He absolutely loves it.
It just... It's a nice little console, nice little bit of kit. I think what makes it work too is just that kind of functionality of you can have it set up at home, but then if you need to pop out, you can just take it with you. And
well, yeah, exactly. I think that's half the reason why it's done so well. It's just because of the portability of it. It's just so good from that point of view. The fact, as you say, that you can go out with it and play. And I wonder if that's half the reason it's done so well is because of just the portability of the game.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, sorry, yeah, the console, just allowing people to be able to play it more often and therefore be more willing to give stuff like that a go.
Yeah, no, I think too, when you look at, the game itself, when you look at, if I just I'll pull up for the video real quick, but I'm just showing the YouTube video in that article of the gameplay, and when you look at that kind of side-scrolling platform thing, let's be honest, that's got Nintendo written all over it. When it comes back to handheld consoles, that type of game is perfect for on the go or say, short kind of gaming sessions. So it does make sense in many ways that it's selling so well on the Switch. It's just, it's perfect for it. Whereas that type of game, I mean, I get it. People that enjoy that type of game will play it regardless if it's, if they're on their couch, if they're at a computer desk or whatever, absolutely. But when you look at it, you think, yeah, I can see why the Switch, it would fit so well for that. It's just perfect for a handheld system. But no, I really found it interesting when you consider, when you compare how many of each console there is out there in the wild, to have the Switch version of the game be outselling the PS4, which, by a fair margin is the most established console out there in the modern, console age, I suppose. No, just found it quite interesting.
I think it really does, as you say, just speak volumes for the fact that people didn't think it would do well, and it's just completely... It has, hasn't it? It's done so well.
Oh, I mean, well, especially when some of those games that are available for it, your Breath of the Wild, your Mario Odyssey, even your Mario Kart. It's just... Nintendo's always had it really, really good for their first-party games. Nintendo's own stuff has always been one of the strong points. But when you factor in that now they're doing a lot of... if we look back historically, Nintendo missed out on a lot of the big games because their hardware wasn't up to snuff. But now that, you can get Switch versions of many of the big games out there, it's a complete and utter game changer. It just... it really, really does kind of change the way things work. Right, a bit of tech, not really tech news, it's a tech product. Yep, that's fine. This is from WCCF Tech, and this is Netgear releasing a new Nighthawk Pro, the Pro Gaming XR500 Wi-Fi router, 10 gigabit. It's I mean, we were talking about this before. The Nighthawks are always fantastic looking routers. I mean,
they are.
They're just, they're super, super sexy. They also have always a horrible, well, not horrible, but a very high price. I mean, I could double check, but if you go to Amazon right now, Jay, and just do a search. Let me see, amazon.co.uk, and let me go for Netgear Nighthawk. Okay, depending on the model, we've got some that aren't too bad. Let's see. An XR500 for the low price of $239.99. So that's not so bad. But yeah, they can be quite pricey. But when you look at what they offer, I mean, I think I'm fancy because I've got a 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi router, whereas this Nighthawk is capable of 60 gigahertz. You're talking about having 4 external, so quad stream Wi-Fi. It has 7 gigabit ports built into it. It's actually being marketed and is ideally designed for streamers, video files, and of course people that use networked storage. It does look like an amazing bit of kit. You can run a 10G connection, if you have a PC that's capable of that, and you would, theoretically, you'd experience 1/10 the latency of a 1G connection. I mean, the thing's all about eliminating bottlenecks from your home network. The thing is, whether or not you've got the hardware to take advantage of that, that's another question. Because even like when you think of things like your wireless devices, your mobile phones, your tablets. Yeah. But, there's no denying that it's an amazing bit of kit, especially when we move forward rather, into this world of 4K and beyond. If you're going to be, trying to stream 4K stuff, likewise maybe just between a PC and another media device, if you're using, things like Apple TV, there's a strong case for something like this. Or likewise, if you're a competitive gamer, having this kind of router can be really, really, really quite good, because you've ever heard of the Net Dumas routers?
Yeah.
Remember Triple Rec from Destiny fame? You know, the PvP master. He had got one of those Net Dumas routers, and they offered really, really kind of advanced features where, for example, how many times, Jay, in the Crucible have you experienced, you know, folk that are just lagging beyond?
Oh, God, so many times.
Right, I mean, probably more times than I've had hot meals. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've experienced that a lot. With the Net Dumas, what you could do, you could actually, by just from the router, ensure that you would only be matched, regardless of the game, you would only be match made with people from a certain geographic area. So if you wanted to only play with people in Swindon, you can set it up that way. It's crazy. And this new Netgear Nighthawk is featuring the Duma operating system within it. So what that gives you is a gaming dashboard. You can see bandwidth usage, ping, all this kind of other stuff. And it's pretty crazy, pretty ridiculous. But pricing is looking at £449 British pounds, $500 US.
Quite a lot.
Quite a fair bit. One final little bit, because Jay is going to have to leave us here. And also, as you can see here, my voice is getting a bit crackly yet again. It's to do with a recent, you could say basically a fire sale acquisition. This is from Polygon.com, and this is to do with THQ Nordic picking up the Kingdoms of Amalur IP from 38 Studios Wreckage. Now, if you don't recall, Kingdoms of Amalur was an amazing RPG way back when, that really, probably the only reason it didn't do as well as it should have was because it was released around the same time as Skyrim, which, imagine trying to go head to head with Skyrim, right? I mean, that's pretty darn difficult. But so this is really, really good news for fans of the series, for fans of that IP, is that THQ Nordic has basically bought the rights to its intellectual property. And so what's got people mostly interested about this is, of course, that the studio, before they went under, before, all of these Kingdoms games kind of went by the by, they had been working on an MMO project, codenamed Copernicus. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. So when 38 Studios had liquidated in 2013, all of these kind of things went to the wind. I mean, yeah, there were still contracts in place, hence why, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning were released for PlayStation 3, Windows PC, and Xbox 360 by EA. But everything else was just kind of, never really bought up. And unfortunately, when that game was released, it just didn't make enough money to make up for the debt that the studio needed. Now, there's a lot more detailed information into why that studio went under. In fact, Marcus, our head of IT, we were having a conversation about that earlier today. And it's really quite, a horrible story with a lot to it. But, at least this is a nice bit of good news that, hey, even so that studio went under that many years ago, the intellectual property has been picked up, and with any luck, we'll see those games being developed in the not-so-distant future. Maybe. Never know. It could happen. Have a bit of faith.
Yep.
Right, well, hey, let's call it for this week, because, Jay, I know you have to bounce, dude.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll go rush off.
If you want to leave right now, thank you very much for being with us this week. Always a pleasure.
Cheers.
And I'll try to catch you at some point over the weekend.
Yeah, I'll be on over the weekend. You can probably gather. The other people can probably gather.
Yeah, we know what you know what you're going to be doing. Is the other half okay with this?
Oh yeah, see, he knows this time of year it's destiny.
Right, have a good one, bud. We'll catch you later.
You too as well. Bye.
Yeah. Right, folks. Hey, but okay. So Jay's gone. Now we can talk about him behind his back. No, of course we're not going to do that. Right. So that's going to do it for this week. As always, make sure to look around the website, scholarlygamers.com. We've got some great content. Of course, the latest episode of Proof of Console just dropped this week, and that is to do with Fortnite. You know, so hey, come on, kids. I mean, Fortnite, everyone loves it, right? So you've got to check out the latest episode of Proof of Console. We've also got... as per usual, some good articles here and there. There was one that just dropped just as I began recording this. I haven't even got a chance to read it yet. And that, of course, is from good old Matt here about Capcom Live and the magic of video game concerts. So that is what I'm going to be doing after I stretch my legs, is having a read of that. But yeah, you know, as always, you know, make sure to add the website to your favorites. There's always plenty of different types of content, whether it's reviews, whether it's articles, video content. There's a little bit of something for everybody. And it's the same to do, you know, when it comes to other forms of content, like on Twitch. You know, by searching for the hashtag Scholarly Gamers on social media, you will most likely come across somebody who is streaming something to Twitch. You know, the community is quite wide and diverse, all sorts of different personalities and all sorts of different types of games. So again, it really is a case that there's a little bit of something for everyone, so make sure to check them out sometime. In the meantime, I am going to go try to get some more liquid in my throat. I don't know what it is. I'm just, you know, it must be maybe still the after effects of that horrible sickness I had. Or maybe it's just, you know, been that long that I've been chatting away with a microphone in front of me that I'm just becoming unaccustomed to it once again. Either way, thanks for watching. Make sure to share, and we'll catch you next time.